Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, Girlfriend Cheated on Me with Her Boss, Then Told Me the Baby Is Mine. I, 28 meters, have been with my GF, 25F, for just about 2 years. The relationship was good and then she tells me she's pregnant. For the most part, I'm careful and she said she was on birth control. I was skeptical but went to an appointment. I then figured it was just one of those things. I always wanted a family, so even though this was not how I wanted to begin, I was overjoyed. We're past the first trimester and I have her move in at her insistence. Insert red flag I missed. We're planning what we will do work-wise and how to set up the baby's room. She is pretty insistent she will go back to work but be able to stay home. She swears she can make it work. I go to every appointment with her. Things are still good. We're in the third trimester and I make my schedule work to still go to every appointment. Up until this point, I had been at each appointment in its entirety. This one appointment, she's asks me to wait so she can talk to the doctor first. I'm super concerned that something is wrong with the baby, and she didn't want me to hear. I go in and the checkup is done. Everything looks good. My GF brushes off my concern over why I couldn't be there for all of it. Another red flag. We're about a month and a half from the due date and I notice her being kind of secretive with phone calls and texts. She tells me it's work and it's confidential, etc. My antenna is now up, so I try to get looks at her phone. She's got Snapchat and Kik. I find it strange but don't confront her. The baby is born, and I'm overwhelmed with emotion. The child is perfect, and things went fine. Then comes the part where they want me to go on the birth certificate. My GF becomes really insistent about it. She's constantly asking me to do it and seems way more anxious I've ever seen her. Here's the red flag I didn't miss. I don't do it. We have an argument, but she stops pushing. I think it's because she knows how suspect it looks already. We're home and she has to go tend to the baby after it woke up. I notice she set her phone down to go to the baby. I couldn't help it and looked. It was still unlocked. I start looking for texts or calls. I then find a whole conversation on Kik with a guy. All the updates of her appointments. Pictures of her and the baby. Then I see it. The place she says she thinks it's his child. I confront her and she apologizes. She admits the baby could be mine or someone else, but she thinks it's mine. I demand a paternity test and leave. It's been about a week since the confrontation. The results came in yesterday and the baby isn't mine. She's gone to live with her mother. Here's the best part. It took me a lot of digging, seeing as all I had were usernames she talked to him to. The father is her boss. The secrecy was for him. The boss with a wife and 4 kids in middle and high school. I found the wife on Facebook and sent her all I had, including texts from my GF saying it's his. I'm heartbroken so many ways. I'm lucky in a lot of ways here, but I'm so hurt. This has completely changed my whole outlook. I'm bitter, angry and untrusting. I have no idea how to recover from this. A user in the comments said, "You dumped her and exposed her affair and child to the app's wife, good job. Now, take your time to grieve your loss. Look after yourself and realize that you were fooled by who she lied to you to be and that none of this is your fault. Then take another moment to think how lucky you are to have dodged this bullet. It doesn't feel like it, but you were darned lucky. It could have gone down way worse and cost you years of your life and a child you have already raised." Another user said, "That's a one-of-kind Christmas present to your GF's boss. You did well discover her deception and standing up for yourself. Man, your GF insistent you sign the birth certificate. That is cold." The next one is titled, Update. Aftermath of me discovering my GF's baby wasn't mine. I've still not spoken to her. I can't bring myself to. I'm conflicted because I still bonded with that baby. Yet I am not the father. That is painful. She still tries to contact me. I don't know if it's love. I won't talk to her. On to the guy who is the father. I told his wife. She didn't respond immediately. I found out through my ex that he lost his job. There's some justice in the world. He won't have anything to do with my ex. He blames her for the mess he's currently in. His wife contacted me over a week later. She apologized for what I went through. She was still in shock, I guess. She kicked him out. I have no idea where he went. Their kids know. Everyone knows. My ex still works there but is in the process to find a new job, seeing as literally everyone knows what happened now. I'm still in shock some and still heartbroken. This holiday will be tough and sad for me. I know there's hope. I know it will get better. This shook me to my core, and I don't know how long it'll take. I'm ready to swear off any relationship ever again. Final update. I've finally found peace with myself and broke up with this awful woman. I hope I'll be able to trust another woman again in the future. The next one is titled, Long Distance Girlfriend, 28F. Has close male friend who likes her. I'm 28M. Wondering what to do. My girlfriend is righteous, fair, and caring to the extreme. She wouldn't hurt a fly. Case in point, I once killed an ant that was on the table and she actually cried, with real tears. Because she cares, and because she can't see any being, no matter which one, be in pain. Now, on to my issue. We're in a long-distance relationship, and there's this guy at her work that is really, desperately in love with her in my opinion. It started out as them becoming running partners while she was preparing for a marathon. They run together 3 times a week, before work. And long runs at that, sometimes 20 to 30K. They talk a lot during those and got to know each other. Then they hang out at work. They eat together and talk more. They are both kind of foodies. Actually, that's one of the special things between me and her. So they exchange things they cooked. For example, jam in exchange for honey, homemade bread, things like that. Then sometimes they go to parties together, though as far as I know, he's invited her a couple of times and she's always declined to go to a party just with him. If they are at a party together, it's because it's a group thing and they belong to the same group of people. Anyway, they go to parties, and I think they hang out nicely there too. Lastly, although she declines to go to party one-on-one with him, they do hang out together on Sunday afternoons and the like. So, I'm 100% sure that this guy is super into her. He does everything he can to hang out with her. Now on to her side. She wouldn't hurt me. I was wondering for a while whether she was capable of cheating behind my back and not telling me. In other words, her version of, not hurting me. But I'm pretty sure that's not an option, because we see each other often, every 2 weeks, and it's miraculously amazing every single time. Mind-blowing. Never seen such synergy in any couple. Everything. The conversation, the love, the activities we do, the sex, absolutely everything. We talk on the phone all the time. Every single evening. There's literally no available time in which she could actually cheat on me, unless they meet from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. or something ridiculous like that. She's pretty blunt. I don't think she would hide something like that. She's not the type to be afraid to break up. I think if she felt like it she'd just do it, because it would feel right. Having said all this, I don't know what to do. Just like I'm 100% sure that the guy would love to be in a couple with her, I think she is also not indifferent, and she would definitely go for it if she weren't with me. They're a pretty good match. They have similar backgrounds, more similar than her and me. They work at the same place and like hanging out at the same spots. They speak the same language, whereas with me she has to speak in English. None of us are native. He's a cool guy, young, smart, sportsy. He's got a lot going for him. It's a funny situation. On the one hand, it's super awesome to have a girl that's so true to you. I'm really sure she's not cheating. That's not the problem here. On the other hand, I'm also pretty damn sure that if we weren't together, she'd be with that guy. It would just make absolutely no sense to not be with him. So, the question is that an okay situation? Could one see it as her just keeping the guy as a backup in case we break up, and is that an okay thing to do? Is it an indication that I'm not showing her enough proof of my affection, and she believes there's a possibility of breakup? Alternatively, she's somewhat naive about many things. Is it actually possible that she doesn't notice anything, that she really thinks they're just friends and he has no special intentions? On the possibility that she's afraid of a breakup and keeps him a backup, unfortunately I can't go much further with our current situation to give her a promise of security. We're long distance, so I wouldn't do anything crazy like proposing to her when we've never lived together. I guess the only reasonable thing I could do is quit my job and move to her city, but I love my job so much and I'm doing so well at it that it would be really hard for me to do that. Note that for the eventual plan, when we'd move in together, we would go to a city where I can keep working for the same company. There are many such cities, but sadly the one she lives in is not one of those where we have an office. I almost feel bad because they'd be such a great couple. I feel like I should just make it easy for her and let her be with that guy, be done with the long distance, let them be married in their city and have a happy life together. With me, we have another 1 to 2 years of long distance to get through, and then we'd probably have to both move to another city to be together. We've talked a lot about it, we're both okay with that plan. We both can't wait to move in together, but when you take a step back it would just make so much more sense for them to be together instead. I guess sometimes love does strange things. I don't know if I should bring this up to her at all, as I said, nothing bad is actually happening at the moment. I just want to avoid that in 1 year she suddenly has a change of heart and goes with him, and we all realize we lost 1 year of our lives. And frankly if that happens the two of them would still be fine, but the biggest loser would be me, since I'd be all alone and I'd have to start everything over. The stupidest part is that this wouldn't be a question at all if we lived in the same city, because then she'd obviously spend all her time with me, and she wouldn't have this enormous amount of time spent with this other guy. I don't know what to do. I'm happy with her, and she's happy with me. I just don't want to wake up one day and realize it was all a waste. I'm in my prime years now, I won't be any more in 2 to 3 years. Edit. Maybe a reasonable thing to do would be to talk to the guy? There aren't many opportunities for me to do so, but he might be at a gathering that we're going to attend next weekend. Sorry, don't want to give too many details. A user in the comments said, I think the problem here is the vast amount of time she is spending one-on-one with a guy that isn't you. Even though these aren't official dates, she has been effectively dating this guy for a long while. I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I would just sit her down and discuss it. Another user said, may I ask why you think this is not a form of cheating? In my male mind, I consider this a kind of emotional cheating. It astounds me that many women can easily consider getting emotional support from men who are just friends, or at least that's what they would have us believe. All men I know consider this kind of emotional intimacy, love and sex to go hand in hand, as in a relationship. Personally, I feel that your GF is filling a void and probably is waiting for you to do something about it. Either break up or close the distance. You seem to be leaning toward the former. Either way, you need to make the move if you want peace of mind. The next one is titled, Update After 5 Years. Long Distance Girlfriend, 28F. Has close male friend who likes her. I'm, 28M. Wondering what to do. I brought up the topic and she was super cool about it. She was surprised and she said that it was just friendship on her side. However, she went up to the guy and asked him if he saw things the same way. He said he didn't, he was actually into her. So, she told him that she's with me and that they need to stop hanging out. It was never an issue after that. We still met him at a few parties, but it didn't make me feel bad at all. Reading the old post made me smile. It felt like a big issue back then, but she solved it so swiftly. I'm really thankful to her. We've had the most wonderful relationship since then, and even before then. We're 33 years old now and still going strong together. We moved in together a couple of years ago and it's been amazing living together, traveling together, being together all the time. She's still so sweet, I love her with the bottom of my heart, and it's obvious she loves me too. You never know how these things will turn out, but ours is a story to fill your hearts with hope and love. The next one is titled, My 19F, Biological Fathers, 45 meters, Wife, 40F, said she wants me to leave them alone. Okay, this is gonna be kinda long because the amount of drama leading up to this is ridiculous. Usually I just summarize, but the context is important. I'm gonna change names and specific locations because I don't want to get tracked down and found out and stuff. Backstory. It all started a few months before I was even conceived. My biological mother, let's call her Chloe, was engaged to a man who we will call Carl. So, Chloe was working at a Walmart while engaged to Carl, and decided to cheat on him with her boss, who we'll call Harold. So, Harold had no idea Chloe was engaged until they had been dating for a while. Things are going well between them until one day Harold catches Chloe on a date with his best friend. This leads to a big fight where Chloe hits Harold and he has to lock her out of the house to protect himself. She calls the police on him, and due to the crappy domestic dispute laws in their state, they both spend the night in jail. Somehow Harold is blamed for the incident and is ordered to take 2 years of anger management and decides to never speak to Chloe again. A few weeks later Harold gets a text from one of his friends, telling him that Chloe is pregnant, and that Harold is the father. He immediately calls bullcrap, because Chloe is not only engaged to another man who is probably the father but was also being intimate with many other men. So, he brushes it off and forgets about it. A couple months pass, and Harold gets a call from an adoption agency saying that they need to talk to him. Chloe has decided to give the baby, hey, that's me, up for adoption, and Harold needs to sign some papers since she put him down as the father. He agrees to sit down with someone from the agency, but only to talk to them about the claims. So, he meets a representative and tells them that he doesn't think he's the father. The guy from the agency goes, "Oh, great. Just sign here then," and hands Harold the documents to surrender his rights as a father. Harold signs them and doesn't hear anything from them again. Meanwhile with Chloe, she has the baby, with her fiancé in the room, which gives me infinite respect for him, and the baby is adopted 3 days later. Unfortunately, the baby, who is me, was born with a slew of genetic illnesses, and I end up in the hospital only 20 days later because my kidney was collapsing in on itself. To save time, let's just say that growing up I spent a disgusting amount of time in the hospital. My health was in a perpetual downward spiral, and every time we found a solution to one problem, a new one would pop up and wreak havoc on my tiny body. It all came to a head one day when I was 13, when I was in so much pain that my doctors thought I was having a heart attack. I wasn't but hadn't been diagnosed yet, so they had no clue. So, after being told by my doctors in the hospital that I had a heart attack, my adopted dad, who we'll call Marcus, freaked out and finally reached out to Harold for the first time. He asked for his medical records so that they could better assess the situation and decide what to do. Here is where the problem started. The first incident. So, while I was busy being cripplingly ill, Harold had forgotten all about me and started a new life with a woman he met a month after my birth. Let's call her Heather because she reminds me of Heather Duke. They had 2 sons at the time, and Harold hadn't told Heather anything about maybe having another kid. To clarify, I wasn't there for this part, so I am only telling what I have been told happened. So, Heather finds the email that my dad sent to Harold and absolutely loses her mind. She thinks he cheated on her or something and blocks my dad on Facebook and starts messaging Chloe on Facebook. Now this is where the story gets a little tricky. I have been told 2 different versions of this event and honestly I'm not 100% sure which one is true, so I'll just tell both. Chloe's version. Heather started sending mass amount of hate and harassment to Chloe, basically telling her to step off and get away from her man. Heather insisted that Harold wasn't the father, and Chloe was lying. By this point in time Chloe was already married and had 2 daughters that she kept, one who belonged to her old fiancé, and one who belonged to her current husband, and had also built a relationship with me. She read me some of the messages that Heather sent during a weekend I was spending with her and my half-sister almost 4 years later. She said, I quote, "Her grammar was atrocious, but I didn't think correcting it was the right way to go." Heather's version. Heather reached out to Chloe to talk to her about the situation and what she wanted them to do. Chloe snapped at her and said there was no way that my parents would put me through a paternity test. Because Chloe said that, they decided not to pursue the test. After these communications all contact was lost, and my dad lost Harold's cell phone number. The whole interaction ended with no paternity test, and no medical records. Recent events. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here is what has happened in the last month. So, my health has progressively gotten worse and I now have to apply for disability if I want to pay for my ungodly number of medications. The lawyer I hired said that having a full family medical history might be helpful. So, I asked my super smart friend to track Harold down so I could contact him. Long story short, I got his number and I left him a voicemail that was basically me just begging him to help me and that I was sorry for intruding on his life and begging for him not yell at me. He called back after like 20 minutes, and to my extreme surprise he was happy to hear from me. He said that not contacting me was one of the biggest regrets of his life. We cried together on the phone, and I told him about the genetic disorders I have and how I was worried for his kids. He assured me that they were healthy, and I cried because I was relieved. We talked throughout the week until eventually he had to fly home from his business trip and tell his wife what was going on. Needless to say, it did not go well. Heather was pissed and demanded that we limit contact until the results of the paternity test came in. Unfortunately for her, it came back positive and confirmed that I am his daughter. Here is where the story gets sticky again, because I have been told two different versions of what happened during the last week. Harold's version: Harold and Heather got in a big fight, and she made him tell her sons what he did. Maybe it was meant to humiliate him, but if so it backfired because his sons were so excited to have a sister. One of them compared me to Shazam, I think. Harold left to go on another trip for work, and he and Heather fought right before he left for the airport. He called me while he drove there and told me all of this and said that he didn't want to lose contact with me again. I was so happy he still wanted me around, but I was sad that I screwed up his family. He told me it wasn't my fault, but I still felt bad. I got Heather's version of events much later, at 11 p.m. when I was trying to eat my ramen. She messaged me on Facebook and claimed that this is what really happened. Heather's version: Harold was unhappy about the test and said that I was too much too fast, but wouldn't tell me that because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. They told their sons, and they weren't happy about it either. She told me that Harold hardly has time for his kids, and I was forcing your way in. Now I am a very sensitive person and have a habit of breaking down over the smallest things because of other stuff that's happened in my past, but that's not relevant right now, which is why I'm very proud of how I handled this. I texted Harold and told him that his wife had contacted me, and within seconds he had called me and asked me to read what she had said. I read it to him and also read the apology I sent to her. He apologized on her behalf and asked if I was okay because I sounded like I was crying, which I was, but I didn't want him to feel bad, so I just told him I was fine and I was just tired. I asked him what I should do, and he told me to just be myself. So, I apologized to her again and again while she snapped at me and eventually she stopped, and I got to go to bed. Things were quiet after that, and I tried not to message them because I didn't want to get yelled at again. This morning I got diagnosed with severe scoliosis and yesterday with epilepsy, and since those are usually genetic I texted Harold and told him he might want to get his sons tested for it. Apparently this was a bad idea because Heather proceeds to message me and tell me to stop texting them, and that I was not helping their marriage. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help and asking her to please stop lashing out at me, but she just texted back with, "I'm not lashing out. We just want you to leave us alone." I haven't responded back because her message really hurt, and I just shut down and fell asleep to cope. I apologized to Harold, but he hasn't replied to the text, which is making me think that maybe they really do want me to leave them alone, but I also know that Harold told me the exact opposite. My anxiety is having a field day and I have absolutely no idea what to do. My main goal in this situation is to preserve my relationship with Harold and try to get Heather to like me. What do I do? A user in the comments said, "You don't need Heather to like you. Heather is not part of this. Block Heather. Do not speak to her. Your relationship is with Harold and Harold alone." It is entirely possible that Harold said things were going really fast. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means he may be overwhelmed, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's being very honest when he says that he wants a relationship with you. Heather sounds like a piece of work. Don't even waste your time with her. Get Harold's medical history and genetic profile. You need this. Then pursue your relationship with him separately from the medical stuff. The next one is titled, Update. My, 19F, biological fathers, 45M, wife, 40F, wants me to just leave them alone. So long story short, I took the advice I was given and muted Heather's messages to me. The stuff she was saying to me has really gotten to me, and at this point I'm not quite sure if I'm the bad guy. I called Harold and talked to him about the situation and told him that I don't think it is in my best interests to be talking to his wife. This is where things took a bit of a sad turn. Harold agreed with his wife and said it would be best if I just left them alone for a while. I was stunned for a few moments, because this is the opposite of what he had told me less than 24 hours earlier. That said, even if he had said something else beforehand, I know that I have to respect his decision. I told him that I would stop all contact, and when he is ready to talk again it will be on him to message me. That's where the call ended, and we haven't spoken since. It sucks. I'm kinda hurt. I know I have no right to be hurt about it, but I still am. I've come to the decision that it's not my job to make them like me. This was probably not going to end any other way. It's painful, but it's the world we live in. I'm sorry I don't have a happier ending to share, but I'd still like to thank you guys for the amount of support and loving messages I received on my first post. I don't think I could have endured this without you guys, and the validation you provided me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to send such kind messages and helpful advice. I appreciate each and every one of you and am sending virtual hugs. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.